Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. It is Monday night. We are back in action, duo again, but Bickler is brewing. He should be back. We're hoping to have him back in action next Monday. Hopefully, the schedules will finally line up, but we'll have him back in action over here. But I am your host, always Timuchin here in Chicago. Still not too cold, still not complaining, still in the cruising mode. Yeah, it's not bad. It's chilly, but for November 13, I will take it any day. And with us, as always, is Gally. What's happening?
Doing good here. It's a little colder than I would like Western Massachusetts to be already, but I will say it was a funny moment this morning when we walked outside because the dog looked down at the ground for the first time and it was like fully frozen under his feet. And he took those two steps and it was like crink, clink. And he looked at me like, what the bleep is this? Like, I don't know that he actually remembers how
Oh,
cold. I mean, he was such a puppy last year. It was his first winter. So, like, he's already a year and a half in, he's becoming an old man like his owner, and he's kind of like, yeah, this is for the birds. This shit sucks. But he still went on one long ass walk and was very happy about it. So the smoke man got outside, did not like the frost on the ground, which makes me think he too is rooting for this light winter that the almanac's calling
is that
for.
like the Galley household's version of like the Groundhog Day? You take the puppy out and see how he reacts to the cold to determine how the weather is going to be.
Determine whether or not he's going for another fucking walk this year. Yes, yes, that's how it works.
If he's gonna poop outside or inside is what is determined
No,
there.
no, 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 no. One thing this man does, he is a full-time outdoor pooper. And yes, Alan, we have already gotten frost. I know you're in Texas. When do you get frost? Never.
Yeah, we actually had frost like a week or so ago, but it's been nice. Like I say, for November, it's been nice. But that's good weather forecast and updates for everyone involved. But now it is the international break is upon us. But before we get to all that great international soccer talk, let's talk about the weekend. So we were talking about it on the pre-match, right? I think when we were looking at the lineup, obviously, especially after Thursday's game, the two big names that kind of got our attention because I feel like the way they were taken out, the common reaction, the most popular reaction that I heard from people was like, "There's no way they're playing after that performance," kind of a deal on Thursday. Was Costas and Endo, but they do make the appearance again, and I thought they both did well. Let's start with Endo because I think he's kind of like pivotal in terms of moving forward, right? I think Costas's role is limited for the I mean, eventually, at least when Robertson is back, whereas Ando's role is still yet to be determined. What did you make of Ando's performance? And I guess, like, give me like an overall evaluation of the game as well while we're at it.
Yeah, I think overall evaluation of the game, I think you have to be pleased with a performance like that. It looked like a complete performance. They scored goals. They defended pretty resolutely. They didn't give Brentford, those 6 or 7 gilt-edged chances. They gave Embuemo a couple early, made me nervous. I was like, listen, if you're going to give Embuemo that much space, I mean, let's be clear first and foremost, Virgil was the best player on the pitch. I don't even think it was close. And that was with Mo being really, really good. That's the best I've seen Virgil play
Yes,
in a
definitely
couple
the
years.
graph is going up, right? Because we talked about it in the past, like, is he dipping and stuff? I mean, I think you look from the beginning of the year till now, I think you constantly see like an increasing performance of getting as close as possible to the old Verge.
And I agree. And I think that he's trending upwards and he's just rounding into good form, which is what good players do when you play well and you have confidence. And we didn't see that earlier in the season. We saw him almost like guessing himself at times. And if Virgil's doing that, you're in trouble because he plays with so much panache and instinct, right? That's what makes him so special. Once he's thinking about it, that is kind of, he becomes human. I think when you look at that graphic you brought up with the ratings and the scorings, I think it's easy when Virgil is playing at his best that once again our left back had one of the best days he's ever had as a defensive left back. I also think that it helped Endo. Now, I thought Endo was good. I thought he was really good. And then I looked at some of the statistics and I kind of was like, well, maybe I was looking too much for him to be successful. But I'll say this. I think sometimes you can get yourself blinded in stats. Now, I think the 0 for 9 ground duels, that's a tough one, or 1 for 8, whatever he was for the match. That's a tough
Yeah,
one to
one
get
for nine.
over. 1 for 9 is a tough one, right? For
Yeah,
your defensive midfielder. Now, it's not like Brentford had a bunch of possession and he was asked to break up play a bunch of times
true.
either.
Exactly.
Some of those might have been kind of in kind of like some slight odd places. I thought all in all he was tidy on the ball, he was quick with it, and at times he moved the ball forward in a positive manner and got the ball quickly to guys in the final third and got guys sprung on the attack. And I thought that's what we've been lacking and missing a little bit from what we remember Fab when he was really, really good at it, was winning a ball, making a quick right pass, and moving the ball forward and kind of just starting the process of the play. So I thought Endo was good. Was he great? No, but I don't think he's ever going to be great. And I think that's what happens when you buy a guy as your third choice defensive midfielder. 2 days after you try to spend 100 million and 50 million on two different players, you bring in a guy for 10 who's 30. You're probably buying a squad player. He looks to be a serviceable squad player. That's
Yeah,
kind of
I think he does things that are number six things, and he did a lot of it. And I almost felt like, I don't know if this is because we had Gakpo in midfield as well, right? But it almost sounded like felt like there are times he's a bit more adventurous than Fab. That's for sure. He does like driving with the ball forward, which is great to see. But it almost felt like he would drive forward and he'd be like, "Oh shit, wait," and then he would just like give it to somebody and start backpedaling. It almost felt like because we were playing ultimately four attackers, by one being kind of midfieldish. But you had like Jota out there, Nunez out there, Mo out there, and Gakpo with them. It was more like, hey, you protect the back. And we did see Trent a lot more on the wide side. I don't know where these ideas are coming from, but it was very effective. And you had Costas on the left. It almost sounded like, or felt like, I should say, that he was told, hey, protect the back, we'll attack. You just stop the thing. And I feel like he did a couple of fouls that we saw Fabinho do a bazillion times, Fernandinho in the City do a bazillion times, where it was nice tactical fouls that wasn't like the ones he did on Thursday, where they were so rash that it was like every single one of them deserved a yellow card. But it's not even like you can't even show a yellow card, but it was stopping the counters. And if
Yep.
he was on the pitch against Luton, for example, we would not have conceded that goal just because of having somebody like that with that attitude.
Yeah, and that was what I meant. Right? I think that was something I mentioned, whether it was on our show or it was in the pod on the pre-match show. It was almost criminal, Kanate not just taking the player down on Luton. But the truth is, two other guys in the midfield had chances to take him down too. But one of them was already sitting on a yellow card, and the other one was sitting on a yellow card suspension. And neither of them were looking to get sent off or get themselves marching orders for that match. So I do believe that a guy like Endo in a spot like that gives you that kind of peace of mind. And it's a player who's playing in his natural position. And if we didn't learn anything from playing unorthodox players out of position just because they're the best 11 you have available, it doesn't always mean it's the best opportunity to win. And I think that's what we're starting to see here. My question for you is just on the Costas side of things. Do you think Costas would have got the start if Joe Gomez hadn't had the illness that didn't allow him to be match day ready?
I think so, just because I saw Endo start as well. I mean, both players who had pretty much a miserable Thursday, both of them showing up, starting 11. It was more like, I think that's Klopp's kind of like man management, and it did pay off in a good way, where it was just like, hey, I still believe in you guys. That was a shitty one, but go out there and make it right and do what you can do. But here is the thing. I think you kind of set up an environment where they can succeed as well. And Costas, the role he played, it's a different game, right? When somebody's sitting back, I think that works for Costas in some ways because he can push on that side, whereas we could not with Gomez. I mean, we could not push against Luton on the wings, and that's why we could never score until the very, very, very end. But I think it kind of suited Costas to be able to take advantage of that space and push forward. It helps to have somebody like Jota in front of you, work rate wise, and somebody who's going to maybe cut in a little bit and open up the lane for you to drive through. But more than anything else, look, everybody is suddenly making Costas. This is where consistency pays off, people. People either were crucifying him or suddenly he's the best left back ever. The key is there are a lot of times where Costa still looks like he has the strength of a 12-year-old and loses the ball. Any shoulder to shoulder, he is down. But one thing he did bring, at least this time, I thought, was when he pushed up, the balls he was sending in, the deliveries were more his quality because that's his best trait. And we were not getting that. So it's one thing to have the weakness, but you got to be able to offset it with what you can bring. He was definitely bringing that. Like all the balls he was putting in the box were on point.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. Even the few couple of corners he took, the set pieces were good.
Yep.
There were a couple times early in the first half where, he I think one of them he just barely missed. If it was, I think it was Jota on one of them, and on the other one he just was like slightly too high for Darwin, and you could tell that they had worked on some of these crosses and some of these runs. Like to me, it looked like a formidable attack that was ready to get a result against a team. Like they looked prepared tactically. They looked ready and up for it from the first whistle. Now, you put in a goddamn performance like they did in France, and you better be, especially going into an international break. You don't want that in the back of your mouth for 2 weeks coming off of that. But I just think it just felt a little different. I think the manager got in their ass, honestly, for 2 days on the training ground. And I don't think he was having a bad performance. And I think he demanded a good performance. And it almost showed when he sends those 4 attackers out there to be like, we're going to go out there and we're going to play our football. They're not dictating anything. If they want to sit back, we'll come at them. That's an interesting one.
James says free Bickler. We are going to free.
You missed the beginning.
I got like a trivia
He's not in jail.
Piled up sky high waiting for Bickler's return, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we're free in Bickler, the only thing I can think of is like, how much bail money do you have? Because I haven't gotten that phone call yet asking for a wire or a call from some 1-800 bail bondsman down in North Carolina. So my assumption is that he just couldn't make it. But James, don't you worry. We opened up the show with, we expect to have the trio back together next week on Monday night. So please join in. And I'm sure we'll have a riveting second week of the international break program.
Yeah, it's Bickler's favorite time of year, too.
Perfect time. We'll bring Bickler back, and we'll just wind him up. We'll ask him what he thinks of the U.S. men's national team.
But, yeah, going back to the game, I think – and there was definitely better counter-pressing, right? I think that message came across finally. I was hoping that would be in France as well after the stinker against Luton. But it did happen – definitely on Saturday, and there was better. I actually, if you guys go back and watch the game, there's a moment where Kostas Wicks this great run to the end line, and he kind of tries to play it on the ground where the ball gets intercepted. Mo is wide open on the back post. He's wide open, and then you see Mo. I think that was right before maybe first half. You see Mo talking to Kostas, and he's pretty much by the hand gestures explaining that. I was freaking wide open the back post, by the way. They're all rushing to the front post. And then the goal comes exactly in that way where he chips it to the back post. And all he has to do is just like head it in. I don't know, like they semi-stopped too because they were like, is it out? Kind of an ordeal. But I thought they worked better on the pitch together. And I guess, speaking of working better, we should probably talk about this. The Nunez-Mo relationship. I mean, that first goal is set up by Nunez. It's a Bobby-like pass and set up over there. So do we have like a pretty good dynamic duo here? And does this help Nunez kind of, we've always talked about, being the impact player off the bench or the starter and stuff like that. Does that relationship almost like push him into a starter role because of it?
Well, I'm going to say something. I know you guys didn't like earlier in the year. I told you I thought Nunez was kind of overtaking Gakpo at the kind of number 1, number 9 spot for Klopp. And I know I got a lot of flack for that. I think Mo has a lot to do with it. I think as Nunez has gotten more and more comfortable, Mo's chances from open play have skyrocketed. His goals from open play are going up. His shots on goal. Yeah. They have created more opportunities for each other big opportunities for each other than any 2 other players in the entire Premier League. That includes Haaland and Alvarez, who have more big chances created than anybody, because that's just the way they play. I think that there is a connection happening. I know, there was an article shared today in our Discord channels with some quotes from Nunez, where he basically just heralds Mo for like everything good that's happening to him. That Mo's had his back all along, started with a translator, gave him peace of mind that his English would come, and as the English came, so would his understanding of what the manager wants from him. Mo explained how it was hard for him when he came. I think Mo has created like an ally for Nunez to succeed at Liverpool. And I think he does care about the kid. And I think you see it because, let's be honest, Nunez likes himself a shot. But one thing Nunez does is pass the ball to Mo if Mo is open.
If
Anywhere on
Newman
the
is
pitch.
from the middle to the right, he looks to see where Mo is. If he's middle to the left, he cracks a shot.
And you know what? I'm fine with that because Luis Diaz is going to kick the ball 20 rows into the stands anyways, or he's going to score a worldy goal. I mean, let's be honest. It's not a prolific goal scorer on the left-hand side. I'd rather Diaz stay out wide and create space and let others run into it and make crosses and create for the other two in the box. I'll say this. What is getting lost is Trent's amazing pass in, but what really will get lost in all of this, and I know I saw Ryan mention it, but what is really getting lost in all of this is it's Matip stepping up and making the tackle and winning the ball back in our half of the field, quickly getting it to Trent, down to Nunez. Now, let's be honest, though. Mo's touch and finish is brilliant. It's not even half as class as the touch Nunez has to not only get his body in perfect position, but then to feed Mo with the perfect weight on that ball to first time it. It's everything that a year ago, even 6 months ago, Darwin probably hits that ball either too soft and it gets defended, or his first touch takes the ball away from him so much Mo is already offside before he can slip it into him. But in this instance, I just feel like his confidence, I do feel like we are watching it all come together for a player. I also think we're going to have 3 more steps back because he's still a young kid learning English and figuring it all out. And for every great game, I think we will have a mediocre clunker type of game mixed in there. I think we're starting to see it happen.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing, right? Like you're seeing but the good news, I guess, is you're seeing more and more of the positive sides in terms of like what's there to come and what the potential is compared to maybe the beginning, because it looked a lot more awkward. Not only with the ball, controlling the ball, passing the ball, like with the interplay, but defensively too, in terms of like the pressing and stuff like that and how he does it. He runs like a maniac, but running like a maniac is not necessarily pressing, because if it's not coordinated, that's when you're just running like a maniac and you're not doing anything. So I think he's getting better at that. So you're seeing those, but like I say, every time you have a couple of games where you might just sign up for the package deal, you see a game where he misses, like the Luton game where he misses the open nets, and you're like, wonk, wonk, wonk. And then you just kind of like go back and stuff. So it will be some growing pains still, I think, moving forward.
I agree. But I mean, even the little signs of the fact that he's in the right position, he's now making the right runs, where last year I feel like he was just making the wrong runs. At like anytime he made a run, we'd be like, what are you doing? Where are you going? You're running into Mo's space. You're taking up, you're drifting out to the left. You're like, it was almost like he was trying to put himself in positions he knew he could succeed, like he used to succeed at Benfica.
Yes.
Because he just wanted to succeed, but that wasn't where we were asking him to be. And I think that's when the manager couldn't trust him. It was easy to just be like, this maybe isn't working. We'll make this work in the summertime. And then I think you get to this summer, a little better. He takes the new number and all the pressures. I really think in some ways what's helped him the most is the big goals against Newcastle, some of the worldies he's had. But I think it's the assists. I think it is also having the manager at times go to the podium after a match and like not in a one where he scored and saying, oh, I was so proud of the number 9 today. He made all the right runs. He created this play here. He's linking up. He's tracking back. He's doing everything I'm asking. And I just think that when you're a young kid who doesn't lack the physical tools to be confident, but maybe lacks the mental side of confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference. We all look at the beautiful, crazy looking guy with the full-fledged body tattoos and the beautiful partner, right? Like we look at the dude who looks like he's like a spear fisherman and they'd be like, oh, how can that guy not be confident? look, he gets to look in mirrors, right? Like I'd be confident, but it's not always that easy, right?
No,
I mean, I'm
especially
asking a guy like you, who's, I mean, you
I
look
know.
in the mirror and you just
Believe me,
lose
believe me.
confidence.
I know exactly where you're coming from because I go through it every day. But this just doesn't happen. But I think you know it's added a lot to the pressure. I mean, we talked about this before, coming in at the same time as Holland, not to mention the price tag and stuff like that. I think the thing that works for him is for every disappointment, he is getting glimpses of success as well. So he can kind of feed off of that. I mean, if you're constantly getting kind of like how last year sometimes were like poor performance, average, poor, average. I think you're getting like a couple of good and greats in there to kind of feed off of and maybe use it so you're above, still above average because you had a couple of really high games. So one low game, I mean, heck, Mo has had some stinkers too, but I think we are a lot more easily can look past those because we see the consistent above average and great performances. And at this stage, I mean, Mo has become, I mean, he's your match winner. I mean, that's pretty much what he has become. I mean, he was always, but I think now, we always talked about the front three, right? It depends on like who the other ones are. You just know he's going to make his impact on the game. And now, not only scoring wise, but definitely like assisting, creating space in the build up and stuff like that. He's basically your match winner. So the odd thing, I guess, is so we were kind of talking about this morning with the Polish Prince in terms of a year ago, or not even a year ago, like 3 4 months ago, we were talking about him possible, like how much money if he gets 150 for him or 200 for him, what we would say yes to. Is he's always almost like become this player where money can't buy in terms of replacement.
I would agree with that. I just always go back. The only reason we accept a dollar for Mo is because Mo makes indication that he wants to go. And at that point, you sell because he's 31 years old and you're going to get 6-figure fee for him. So, like, I get that. I never wanted to, like, sell Mo. I never thought, like, oh, we'll sell Mo and get a better player. It was more at some point you have to cash in on an asset. If he didn't, when he didn't want to sign the contract, we weren't sure he signed that contract. You see some reports saying he's very interested in the Saudi opportunities. Other reports say he wants to stay in Europe and stay at the top level. What he's willing to take for salary demands to stay at the top level? Is he willing to take that in England? Does he expect, PSG type money? Like, it'll be interesting to see what this summer unfolds. I will say this. Every day that he continues to play like one of the 2 or 3 best players in the Premier League, I find it harder and harder to see him leave. I also think it makes it easier and easier for the powers that be in Saudi Arabia to back up the Brinks truck and deliver so much money because they've bought a lot of players who they thought were at a top level and got there and either aren't or don't care enough to be. And the difference is Karim Benzema has proven already once, twice, or 100 times that he can be a toad. He can literally care and be the best player in the world, or he can give 2 bleeps and be like, yeah, let that fat Higuain guy play ahead of me. I don't care. You don't think I'm good enough? Pound sand,
Yeah.
Bleep you, France. Like, he's proven that. I don't think Mo has that in him. I think if Mo goes to Saudi Arabia, Mo plays in front of 800 people and Mo tries to score 9 goals a game. Because I just think he loves scoring goals. And we all have to be honest about this. That region of the world having a superstar and having that league succeed is important to a guy like Mo. It's not to Jordan Henderson. He wanted $700K a week. I think it is important to Mo. Like, I do believe that. So for all the talk, I still think with the right offer, he goes. I don't know he wants to go, but I don't know he'll say no to it either. Like, it's a weird one. I've said this for a long time. I think that this is going to end uncomfortable for everyone when it does end. I don't know how or when. I just feel like it will end uncomfortable for all of them.
I mean, I think anytime a player that meant so much leaves, it's never comfortable, right? I mean,
Good point.
Look at Bobby. I mean, whoever. I can't think of a really top player that's been in your club for so many times, so many years, and has done so well and stuff like that. Regardless of, it can be totally mutual. It just does. You almost want him to play till 80 at the same level, which obviously is not doable. I know what you mean in terms of like the Mo and his maybe stronger link and connection to the league. I don't know if Mo would care as much if the league does well or becomes the league they want to be and all that kind of good stuff. But I do agree that he would value the role of being seen as an ambassador a lot more than Ronaldo or somebody would.
That's probably what I meant more was is that he, and I think I don't even like saying stomach it because now it makes it sound like Mo is like apologizing or is making it okay with some of the things. He may not believe in everything that they're doing there. I just think that it's easier to align with the overall lifestyle and values when you've lived a lifestyle similar. And I think that, we've talked about like, how can Jordan Henderson's wife go there? She's not allowed out after 9 at night. Newsflash, she's not there. Like, what school are his kids going to go to? Newsflash, they're never going to the Middle East, like ever. Not once, unless they're on vacation in Dubai. They're not going. Like,
by the way, I mean, I found that narrative really like narrow-sighted because if you don't think,
thank you.
I mean, I was in Saudi Arabia for a year actually. I lived in Jeddah for a year because my dad used to work there.
Yep.
I went to an American school and it was done in an American way, and it was like basically it was all international students, mostly American, and then a couple of bozos like me. But it was like a mix, but it was an American school. Everything was American. The teachers, I mean, you wouldn't know if I didn't tell you that school was in Jeddah. You wouldn't know. So these people are given an environment. They're not living just like a regular person, and they're not living by the same rules either. I mean, there was alcohol, there was all kinds of stuff. If you really think that it's like, oh, like they catch Ronaldo with a beer and they're just like, here comes the canings. That shit does not work like that.
No, and I mean we know that's not the case. And listen, it's an agenda-driven story, right? The people in England that want to write nasty stories about the league and what's happening there and bag on the English players, they really just want a reason to sell newspapers in England.
Yeah.
So like there's no one in these guys aren't writing articles in the Guardian to try to change civil rights.
No.
In the Middle East. They're writing articles to sell newspapers to bag on the same English players that he was calling. Like Jordan Henderson destroyed his legacy, but 2 years earlier, he was just an overhyped guy who passed sideways. And if he wasn't captain of Liverpool, no one would think he was any good.
Yeah.
Like those were the things they wrote about him when he was England. When, Harry Kane was the greatest thing since sliced bread when he was at Tottenham. He went to Bayern and, shocker, the English media thinks he is even better because he's gone to a new league and proven he can do it anywhere. And it's, if they like you, they write about you. If they don't like you, they bag you. And it doesn't matter where you are. They just create the story. That's kind of part of why you have to read the media with a grain of salt. And you have to, and I always like, you do a good job of it, of trying not to get caught up in the drama parts of the story, but like what the actual reporting is. And I think the hard part is in England, they allow you to infer so much. Because they write more with sourceless, like they write there even more than they do in America with unnamed sources. And I thought we created the unnamed source, but then I realized, well, we did learn how to read and write from them.
A source close to the club. And that's just like there. I mean, when you have so many sayings for basically not having a source, there's like a freaking problem by itself. But I felt like, going back to, just to finish out the Mo conversation, I really do feel like Brian says, I think the only way Mo goes is if he wants to go. I think this year, I mean, I think we talked about it in the summer, how this year would unfold, how this, Liverpool 2.0 would turn out was a huge factor in that. And obviously, so far, so good in terms of you can see not only you're not just floating, you can see huge potential, number one. And then you can kind of, you're already, we'll talk about that, look at the standings in a little bit over here. But I think that makes a big case. If it was the same as last year, I think Mo was already looking for his villa and stuff over there. Whereas I think, this gives him a lot more to think about, too, because we've also talked that that's always going to be there for him. So let me ask you this, because we kind of talked about this morning as well, because as Ryan mentioned earlier, and you were talking about it too, Matip, who, I mean, me, any home game, I would rather see Matip play if we know we're going against a team that's going to sit back And he did an I mean, he was excellent, I thought, yesterday. And obviously, it helps where Van Dijk is having a good game too. With Would you be open to giving him an extension?
I would. I can't believe I'm saying it out loud.
That's
And
why I
I'm
was
dead
asking.
serious.
To get it on
No,
record.
no, well, I mean, because and I've always been a fan of the player. He's brittle. He had a nightmare of a season last year. I mean, it was brutal. It really was brutal for him on all accounts. And he looked like a guy who was losing a step at each way. And I think the way he plays, I always felt that as he aged, it would be harder for him to continue to play the way he does. The attributes he has maybe aren't as easy. I'd give him an extension. I'd also make sure he understands that, like, we're still going to go out into the market and we're going to buy ourselves a young center back. And you're going to be competing with Konate every day for the number 2 spot. And, like, eventually this kid for the number 3 spot. Like, it would be an extension with an understanding that it's for him to be the 3rd, 4th choice center back. And as time goes on, that may change, because I think you're going to see more minutes for Kwanzaa as time goes on. I think you are going to see them buy a center back as early as January, possibly, if not in the summer. And I think that's important, right? We've talked about the need for one. And I do think a left-sided one is the most need, because we need cover for Virgil. I just think that, let's be honest. The real question is how much longer does Konate get to prove that he was the guy that was supposed to take the next step from Leipzig? Like, Konate's got to be a year and a half away from needing a contract extension. And I'm not sure I'm extending that guy's contract right now for another 3 or 4 years, because he hasn't proven that he can stay fit or in even form for 2+ months at a time.
I think, fit is the biggest question, right? And I think this is what we're going back to. And I think, when we were talking about it, I guess this is where I get stuck with. And I love Matip, and I think he is still our best center back to partner with Van Dijk when we play teams who sit back, because Van Dijk has the diagonals as a weapon, and Matip can push forward and go in between the lines as a weapon. So it creates a lot of problems for a team that's sitting back, because we can build from the back and do things with the ball with the center backs. We just don't have to, find a midfielder to do stuff with it. So I think he's very valuable there. I guess the dilemma becomes, and we have talked about this, like getting another center back. I think it really impacts the profile of center back you will be able to get, knowing you still have Konate there. And we'll talk about him, because obviously his fitness has been an issue. So if you look at the right side, the center back door, right, you still have Konate, who we don't know how long he can stay fit, right? Because he has not proven that he can. You have Matip, and the only reason, if we say no extension, it will be because he is brittle. And then you go back to Gomez on the right-hand side. So I guess if all these people are signed up and you still have Kwanzaa, and obviously you have Van Dijk, the center back you'll be able to attract is going to be very limited, because you're not going to be able to offer him guaranteed playing time, whereas there'll be a bunch of other teams in the Premier League where they can just go and start, whether it's like Wolves or Brighton or whatever, and then make the jump to a bigger team if they want to.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that was kind of why last year it seemed like, you could have taken if you'd marched in and just stolen the kid from Wolfsburg, the Van de Veen. And I know he's hurt now, I think, but that type of player, I don't think anyone thought he would just walk into Spurs and start day one. I think there was time. People thought maybe Langlet would come back. They thought they'd have additional center back options. And then I think as time went on, he just did. But when you see him play, his pace and the way he plays, kind of the class he has, you can understand why he was linked with us. You can understand why you would be excited to have him be your kind of Virgil underling. But I think he would have just got here, and we'd be trying to convince ourselves right now he could play left back, right? That's what would be happening.
Well, he has the pace.
He clearly has the pace. I mean, in some ways he had too much pace, and he pulled his own hamstring off trying to run too fast. But I just think that it's a player like that. I do worry that at some point, though, we get too old too quick, and like Akwanza's not ready, and you're still banking on
Yeah.
Konate getting there, and Matip gets older. And the other question is what happens to Joe Gomez, because he just signed an extension. Now, there's rumors though that he really wants to play, like really, really wants minutes at center back by next season. If that's the case, then I think he's got to angle and push for himself a move in the summer, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
no way back for him back into our best two pairing at center back, is there?
He would have to find an opportunity where, which I mean, shit, it's very likely, right? I mean, sadly, very
Those two
possible
aren't
that
fit.
both are injured and Gomez gets an opportunity. And let's face it, I mean, at one point we were like, "Holy cow, we got our center back pairing for the next decade." When they were playing with Van Dijk together that season. And Ryan says, and I guess this is not really my point. I understand that if you're a great, I mean, Ryan says if you're a great center back, you shouldn't be worried about beating out Matip, Konate, or Kwanzaa. While that is yes, if I'm a young center back who I'm probably going to get the same money regardless of where I go, right? Even if I come to Liverpool and have to go against these people in a team where Klopp kind of sticks with what he knows, and you have to kind of like, walk on your head and stuff like that to be able to make it into the lineup, right? Or you're going to go to, I don't know, like I say, Wolves or Brighton or whatever, and then you're going to probably be the second or third center back, especially if you go to a team like Brighton and stuff who sells people to other clubs afterwards and does not really like, block you in. If this all goes back to if I'm the parent of a kid, like if you're the parent, where would you recommend your son who's like 20 is doing great in Germany? He has the opportunity to come to Liverpool. I guess Liverpool, let's say we're biased, but if you look past the bias, instead of him going to a big club where he might not start or might really struggle and never see the pitch, would you rather have him go to a club where he has a lot better shots, and as he shows himself, then he can get the big contracts and jump up to the big boys?
Oh, I'm advising anyone, my child, cousin, nephew, kid I coach. It wouldn't matter. No, I'm serious. I would recommend to everyone, when you're a young footballer, you need to be playing football.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help to sit on the bench. And it's why guys like, Dominic Solanke leave, and why Rhian Brewster, like everyone thought the sky's the limit for these guys. And then they realized, wait, every summer they bring in one new attacker and we're linked with three more for the next 3 months until the next window opens. And I think there's two sides to it, right? You can be a young center back and you can go to United and know you'll probably play at a big club and get big money. But if it doesn't go right, it can break you. It can make you look like an absolute bust. Like, I don't think Lindelof's a very good footballer, but I think Man United has as much to do with my opinion of Lindelof as the actual play from Lindelof. Because at times he plays for Sweden and actually shows like he's a professional footballer that is a serviceable center back who can get a job done. And I think sometimes we forget when you marry it with all the problems. So yes, if I'm that young kid, I'm going to Brighton, or I'm going to Villa. I'm maybe even going to Wolves and playing for Gary O'Neill, a guy who's going to coach me and make me better. And there's another move for me from there. I think a player coming to Liverpool at this point, I think the next center back we get may end up being more like a Matip type signing. Someone that was, maybe it won't be on a free, but maybe it's more of we'll be buying a third or fourth center back. And that gets us the year or two to try to find the youngster, because everyone wants to invest in the next one. And, I think Ignacio from the Portuguese league there, what is he at? Sporting. Everybody wants him, right? He's great. So does Real Madrid and Barcelona. And if they buy him, he's going to go there. And if City buys him, he's going to go there. Like, we don't have a place for him to play unless he is going to supersede Van Dijk. And I don't think that's going to happen. And I think I don't think they've given up on Konate yet. But I'm questioning how much longer. I don't know how much longer, though. This is 4 years. We're 3 full seasons in. And he's still, only for about 3 months' time did he actually fully usurp Matip to the point where he was guaranteed number one. And I just worry about his fitness And guys that are that age that are always hurt seem to always be hurt.
Because I mean, I think fitness is the issue because he hasn't been out there to be there for an extended period of time for us to be able to judge the consistency and all that kind of stuff, right? There are times where he can really lock somebody in, and then there are some times where he just does make some rash challenges. Ryan says I wouldn't target a young center back. I'm thinking someone proven at mid-late 20s, and I feel like that person is definitely not coming to compete unless he is coming, or not to mention his price tag is going to be a lot higher. But I think, yeah, it's still too early. He's only 24. And I think we've seen glimpses of what he can do. It's just a matter of can he stay healthy or why he can't stay healthy, I guess is like the thing that's a question. I know some players just freaking can't. Doesn't matter, how fit and like a freaking wall you look. Some players just can't. I think it's a hamstring this time. Right? I think that's what the issue is this time.
They said it was a hamstring. They said a couple weeks, but the scary thing with that is we know that if Liverpool says 2 weeks, it's 3.5 to 4. We never rush guys back, which means he won't be fit for the City match. And
no,
I know you love you some Matip, and I enjoy watching it, and I love the runs. I'm not sure this is the matchup that Matip is clamoring for to be going up against Haaland's physicality, and more importantly, even Grealish and or Doku running at him if Trent is vacating space on the left hand side.
Yeah, that's the only issue, right? I don't think I like Matip, and like Matip against Brentford is a perfect fit. Matip against Luton Town. Matip is a perfect fit against teams that are going to sit back, and we're gonna have to kind of like unlock. I don't know, but I pretty much can guarantee you that's your starting center back. Even if he's fit, I don't think Konate comes back and like starts that game. See, Brian says it's just not Konate's fitness; his decision making is troubling too. Honestly, as I blame everything on it, I'm blaming this on that too, because I think Konate's decision making has gotten worse since Trent is sitting on his knee. And blocking, his area because he's not very comfortable. I see Matip more comfortable when he goes out wide. He just can't do the runs he wants to make. You're taking that away from him. Konate is not comfortable with that either. I know last year, initially, when we put Trent in, and people reacted to that and started covering that, Konate was wide open. Like he could just sit down, read a book, and he had the ball on his feet. Nobody was even going to him because he was that wide open, had all kinds of space. I think initially he just didn't know what to do with it because, like, that's not something he's used to, right? He would normally look to his right, give it to Trent, and be like, make things happen, or come to the midfielder, Hando or Fab would come into the middle to grab the ball. I think he adjusted well to that. The issue is he's not fit enough regularly for us to see that on a consistent basis. But physically, I think he can battle with any forward, whether they have speed or size. So he has the physical tools, and he's only 24. So I think it's still too early. So that's why I think if you do invest in another center back, a young center back, you are probably getting him to be groomed by Van Dijk to play on the left-hand side, which is what you need anyway. And I think, in desperate times, desperate measures, you can put that guy on the right-hand side because Van Dijk is not going to move anywhere. So you can put that guy on the right-hand side if everybody is injured or something like that. But it will be somebody that, you can kind of like grow and, give him a couple of years and play him in, League Cup and stuff like that, and like get some playing time rotation-wise and maybe get Van Dijk some rest. I mean, we were kind of talking about that. I think I can't remember if it was the post-match or this morning, but one of the things I feel like Van Dijk has really benefited from is the fact that we're in Europa and not the Champions League. I think it was this morning we were talking about it with Matej, and he's been able to rest and he's been playing once a week. Whereas if we're in the Champions League, regardless of the group, really, knowing Klopp, he's probably out there every Tuesday, Wednesday as well, and he doesn't have to be this year. He just takes the weekdays off.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, especially when you have age coming into factor. I think it's huge when you have to do with recovery. He just looks like he's confident again. And I think maybe that's just form coming back. I mean, we probably took for granted like how world class he was for those first 3 years he was at Liverpool. Like he could do nothing wrong. I mean, really, you can literally think of like the mistakes he made over like 3 or 4 seasons on a single hand. And those mistakes are even like, you'd have to really think about them. You're like, remember that time when he could have done this and he conceded that
Yeah,
call?
and it wasn't
like,
even like
realize we're
a back pass or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he like put the keeper under pressure, and Allie'd look at him like, "What the hell?" And like we'd be like, "Oh my god, can you believe that?" Like we'd have to nitpick to the point where we'd be like, "He could have cleared that upfield, and he gave him a throw in." Like this is the calamitous mistakes, and then other, teams in the league or supporters are trying to get their heads wrapped around having to support Harry Maguire every week, right? Like playing at center back. So, and that's not even fair because he's actually playing pretty well right now for United at the moment, but you look at just all these mistakes you see all over Europe, and you see them by some of the best players. And we really were impervious to that for years. Yeah. And we took it for granted. And then maybe, the guy who will be freed next Monday maybe went a little too far to write his obituary. And I also maybe was a little bit too quick to be like, I'm not going that far, but maybe we should think about life after him. And is he worth this money? And what was the fee you would accept for him? We talk about there not being a price for Mo at this point. There's probably not a price for Virgil at this point either.
Oh, and that's the turntables.
You can give it a little scratch. You can pull that record back. The needle pops off. The more I look at it, and I'm not saying that if the right price doesn't come in, this club won't sell, because I've said this 100 times before. The one thing is that this ownership group will make sure that there is a price on every single player. There is a price for every player because it's the model in which they do business. But we got plenty of time before the terrible January transfer window starts that we'll talk about for no reason and do no business in. And then we're going to have plenty of time until next summer to talk about transfers. So
I'm honestly, I'm dreading that. I'm actually dreading the next 2 weeks because I feel like we kind of even started this morning, and I'm going to start it real quick, at least a quick question for you for the City game build-up that I wish it was not the first game coming from the international break, but kind of goes with this game here, and that's why I want to ask. This starting 11, right? You will have the opportunity to put McAllister, more than likely Gravenberch in this lineup. It would be a big fit. And Diaz, I don't know. I don't think it was a fitness issue necessarily. Maybe it was because he didn't play for a while. Then he played Thursday and stuff like that. How much of the starting 11 do you think will be intact, especially when you look at midfield? Has Endo shown enough, mind you, in a game against Brentford, to say, you know what, he's a defensive midfielder and we will need it? Or do you go with the one you trust from the beginning of the season with Mac?
So I struggle with that a little bit because ultimately I don't know that Endo's shown enough, even for me, to start against City. I'm pretty confident he hasn't shown enough to start against City for Klopp.
I think so. Yeah.
What scares me is this is McAllister at a lunchtime kickoff, coming back off of 2 more weeks of travel all across South America, playing for Argentina, where they don't give 2 bleeps that we got to play 7:30 in the morning or 12:30 in English time, right? We've talked about one of McAllister's worst performances was the first one, right? I think it was Wolves, where he got yanked at halftime. Second one, when we came out and had the lunchtime kickoff after the second international break, he wasn't any better, in my opinion. He was better than the Wolves match, but he wasn't that much better. So in some ways, I question it. What can the manager do? He doesn't even have Curtis Jones to drop there if he wanted to. And trust me, I don't want Curtis Jones there against City. But if you said Endo's not ready, but McAllister's not fit, you don't even have Jones healthy. Yeah. I think it's the midfield picks itself, in my opinion. If Gravenberch can play, it's him, Szoboszlai, and McAllister. Would love to see something interesting or out of the box, but I think that's what we get. And up top, I'm going to say it, I think it'll be Nunez. I know people love Gakpo against the teams that we kind of sit back and play deeper against and need him to drop back. I think he starts Nunez through the middle, Mo on the right. And I think it's a toss-up between Diaz and Jota, and I think that really comes down to whether or not Diaz is totally fit coming back from Colombia duty. Might be a lot to ask him after going back to see his family and see his parents and be in Colombia Like that could be a lot to have him come right back in. I just feel like a game against City is almost like a game where you need Diego Jota from the bench to come win the damn thing for you. And I just feel like maybe that is the call, but it'll be really interesting. I'm sure I'll change that lineup 3 times by next Monday when you ask me again.
Well, Ryan is already throwing in the curveball and putting in Matip at the 6. But look, I think I agree with Endo. I mean, I kind of like a loaded question, but I agree exactly what you're saying. I don't think he's shown enough in a game like this because you're going against City. If it was like a slightly higher scale game, maybe again like a United or something like that, you know what I mean, like a rival or like a traditionally like a bigger team, I would still be okay with them. Still be okay with Endo, but against City, I think it's a different animal. Against Arsenal, I think it's a different animal because they know how to pull you out of position, and I think Endo would be. But I think we saw, and this has always been the City, right? And this is why if we had success against City, and this is why City struggles when people go at them and if you really attack them. And I think that's why you do need Nunez. I'm not normally the Nunez off the bench guy, but in a game like this, I think you do need Nunez to scare those center backs because they definitely look shaky against Chelsea. And when you really go at them with speed, that's when City gets into trouble because they play the same way regardless. They're not going to shift back or anything like that to cover up for your speed. You know, Pep is just as stubborn as freaking Klopp. Or Pep sometimes tries to think too much outside of the box and do something crazy, which works too. But when you have like City's back line, I think you do want to go at it and go with the high scoring game. And you're not going to like sit back and just counter on them because eventually City is going to find the opening that way.
Yeah, if you were if you're looking at this match and I gave you right now, right, going into it, forget that it's lunchtime kickoff and we never play good at those because I hate that shit. I give you a point right now, a guaranteed draw.
I'm
you
taking
leave the Etihad, you taking it, right?
I'm taking it because it's away. I think that's why I'm taking
it. Me too. And I think where we are in the standings as well, I think it's important, in my opinion, it's really important not to drop 3 points in this match. Not only because it swings the standings by 3 points, but more importantly, I think it absolutely puts a lot of pressure on Liverpool and like those question marks that you don't want around the club. Like, can you beat those big teams and can you compete with them? Who is this match, in your opinion? Who's the result more important to? Is it more important for City to even get a draw or a win, or is it more important to Liverpool? Because I'd argue City is in one of those moments where like they may not need a win, but they need a good performance. Because I think they have stumbled a few times this year and could have been picked off for points a couple times. And the combination of, that loss, obviously to Wolves, that's not as big a deal to me as the performance they had against Chelsea, because Chelsea showed people what you can do to get at City in that match. And that's never stop attacking them. And for me, I almost feel like there's more pressure going into this match on City than there is Liverpool, which for a team like Liverpool that can score, that might be like the perfect elixir, right? For like a big time upset.
See, I don't know about pressure, but I feel like Liverpool has more to lose. I don't know if that necessarily pressure, because I mean, I think if I gave you this, I mean, similar to you offering me a point, right? If I gave you these standings in the beginning of the season and say, hey, this is how it's going to look on week 12, I think you're like, sign me up.
I'd ask you how much you drank and what in the goddamn earth makes you think that that's the way it will be. I'd probably say something like, City ain't going to drop 8 points by Christmas, let alone drop 8 points after 12 match weeks. And while we're at it, we may not get 27 points by February if we play like we did last year. So I would have never in a million years. So yes, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. Scary part is I look at it and it makes me sick to my stomach because we left 2 points on the table against Brighton and 2 points on the table against Luton.
That's what really even talking about the Tottenham disaster. I mean, that's the biggest problem, right?
And that one I take that one as a grain of salt, because as bad as the calls were, and I do know they were bad, right? We don't know what would have happened, but we were going to play with 10 men no matter what, and they've proven so far this year they can score goals. And what really kicks you in the nuts with the Spurs game to me isn't not getting the Diaz goal. It's playing as well as they did, as resolute as they did with 9 men for 30 minutes, and then giving up an own goal with seconds left. That to me is the only thing I can't get over, because I remember being in the pub that day, and when it was 1-1, like probably creating swears that I shouldn't have been saying in public, seeing that there were children in the restaurant. But I remember like screaming at the TV and like riling up the crowd and being like, draw this game, and it's, shows stones and blah, blah, blah. Win this fucking thing, and it's what champions are made of. And as I'm yelling, Matip does this, and I'm like, shit. Like,
I honestly,
that was the opposite.
Not even that game. I think the Luton game is probably hurts the most, because I feel like that was so winnable.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, I think that's why, I don't know if it's necessarily pressure, but I think it's a lot more telling for Liverpool. You win this game, and I still think even if you draw this game, it says, hey, you're in the title race over here. One way or the other, unexpected or not, you're in the title race over here. I feel like if you lose this game and fall 4 points behind, I know it's only week 13, but I think, we're like maybe not there yet for Liverpool, right? And then we go back to we didn't even expect this mode, more than likely. Whereas if we win and City is 2 points behind, I don't think City sees that at, oh shit, now we're screwed kind of an ordeal. And I think that's the main reason why I think, it's more telling on us in terms of what comes out of it, in terms of how we look ahead to the future, to the rest of the year. But I don't know if it's necessarily pressure either, because I don't think, including us, I'm sure the boys did, right? I mean, they're not going to be like, oh, we never thought we would do this good. But I'm sure they're impressed with how fast things have happened, and maybe they didn't expect it as much either. But I think, they know that this is a huge game, and I hope it doesn't become bigger than that midfield. I guess that's the biggest fear.
I do agree with that. The one thing I will say, one little caveat to that is that, let's just say, like in your scenario, in that beautiful scenario you just painted out, Bob Ross style, with like happy little trees all over the screen, right? You just literally like just dab them smiling. He's like, I'm going to put a happy tree here. You're like, and we get 3 points, and we go 2 points clear. City has to go a week later. They got to play the Champions League that following week, right? Now I know it's a dead rubber for them. They've advanced. They got to go and play Tottenham the following week at home. Then they got to go on the road and play at Villa. So if they were to drop points to us, and then they got to go play 2 of the toughest teams, we've said before, like the Luton thing really bothers us. For me, it's just the 1 point against Spurs. The Brighton one isn't as bad, because it's a good football team who is playing well then. I know Gravenberch misses that sitter, and that's what sticks in the craw a little bit. But ultimately, the thing about the standings now, what really kind of frustrates me is that what really gets at me is we've played all these tough teams. Our schedule has by far been the hardest of any of the teams at the top of the table. Played Newcastle away, played Villa already.
Where we played them too, yeah.
Chelsea away. Like, we've almost run the gamut through some of the highest teams and the best teams in the league, and we're still right there. So to drop those 2 points to Luton, it's just like, it would have just given us that much more. We'd be in first right now. We'd have the impetus going in. We'd be the ones talking about, could you imagine going 4 points clear, winning at City, and they got to go to Tottenham and go on. And I just think that that's what's most frustrating for me. But ultimately, I'm really excited for this match. I'm not excited for the 7:30 a.m. game, because that means I have to listen to Klopp and the rest of the players bitch about it for a week and a half. And the supporters claim like the world's against us. And I get it. Like it does look like people are against us, but what good does it do talking about it other than fill guys with excuses?
See, if it's against Luton, I think it's against us, right? If it's against Luton or somebody, it's against us. It's not like City is not full of international players as well. So I think that that
Yeah.
levels the playing field. I think, yeah, if you're going against Luton, if you're going against, I don't know, like Fulham or whatever, yeah, you have a lot more guys going than they do. But I think this is pretty much evens the fields. I mean, they're going to have people gone too. The good news is all these international games are on Tuesday, looks like, for the most part. So everybody will be back and at least have 2 days.
And selfishly, I'm not going to lie, selfishly, these matches, Liverpool versus City, when they're like the 11:30 game on Sunday, like the last match, the match of the week, I literally have gone through so much emotions watching 3 matches Saturday, all the morning matches Sunday, the pre-games, the post-match. Like in some ways, it is refreshing. Like I love the 10 a.m. in my time, 9 a.m. your time Saturday games because it's like it just comes, it happens. I can sleep a little bit in the morning. We do a nice pre-game show, and then the match starts, and it's like it's played with 6 other matches at once, so I'm not really like focusing on anything else. I just feel like I get caught up in my own head sometimes, like watching all these games, playing it all out, and I just keep thinking about that match. And in a way, I kind of like just getting it out of the way early in
I
the
got the
weekend
remedy,
when we win.
baby. I got the remedy. I got one word for you: PlayStation. Because anytime like this where there's a game, yeah, I'm just doing anything but soccer because I don't want to hear like the pre-match talk. I don't want to like hear the morning hype build up, all that kind of stuff. I'll just go do FIFA, Call of Duty, whatever you name it, like something away from it, and then I will show
It's
up for the
basically,
pre-match show and move on.
yeah, basically you fill your time by just beating on adolescents across the world. You're like, whether I'm shooting you in the woods, whether I'm attacking you as an assassin, whether or not I am kicking you until you just rage quit. Like, you're literally like the VAR routine. You're just going in with 2-footed tackles on like 8-year-olds across the country. My
Hey,
favorite part
most
though
kids
is
have it coming, baby. They were asking.
I
They have it
I
coming.
just want to see it. Someday you got to get one of them like Twitch recordings of you. Like just, I want like when you like give up a goal or when the computer beats you or something bad. Like I want one of those videos,
The
like when
rage
United
videos.
loses in the last seconds, the watch along ones. And like they're my favorite is, and I'm always thinking to myself, like, I don't know how many YouTube likes and clicks you get, but you just destroyed a laptop and a headset. Like these people are just slamming things, and you can see sometimes like the screen cracks, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I'll be back next week." And then all of a sudden they're back next week, and I always think to myself, "Who the hell buys these people all these computers?" But
Honestly, I
I can
used
just
to love
envision
watching
you.
those, but I feel like some of them are so freaking fake that
They're
nobody
scripted, right?
watches the game like that. Yeah, it's just like, and that's why I don't do it because yeah, you don't want reality TV when it comes to that. Well, international break. Are you watching? What are you doing?
I'm gonna watch a little bit. Honestly, there's not that much. I told you this last time, right? I don't like live and die with the U.S. men's national team. I usually watch so I can bitch on this show about them and Greg Berhalter. I think the fact that they don't have to qualify for this World Cup really has kind of made it a mute point for me. Occasionally, I'll tune in to see how they're doing when they play a big match. Like, when they played Germany that game, I went and watched it out. I wanted to see how they'd fare. And for the first half, they played okay. I'll watch a little bit. I'll watch our players. I'm at that point now where I just kind of like flip around. If I'm bored on Saturday and there's a match on,
Yeah,
maybe I watch. But I take this as a break. We do a lot now with these shows and these programs and the articles and the content. And, I just feel like I was watching extended highlights today of every match so I could get ready for the Premier League show. I catch myself saying, like, you need a break too. Like, they
yeah.
give the players who don't make international duty a break, man. You deserve a break. And you don't have video games to beat up on little kids. So take some time and hang out with your wife.
Join in, baby. Grab a username. Gally hates kids or something like that. Hey, you know what? By the way, you have no room to talk shit about me beating up on kids. You're the guy, so you have no room to talk about that. You're the kid enemy.
100% fair. If I'm just waiting for that game to get so realistic. Some kid holds up a thing that says, Tamuchin, give me your shirt. And somehow you just go over and just kick him. Because I would be all in for the game. Honestly, if it was that type of game, if it was like one of those old games where you could start fights and stuff in the crowd, like NHL 95, where you can just bloody people and leave them out on the ice,
Give it
that's what
another
I'm looking for.
5 years, probably you'll get that realistic. Right now, they're just trying to make money off of you, an ultimate team. But yeah, Turkey
Fair.
plays Germany. actually as a friendly, and then they play Wales away, but they're pretty much guaranteed. But I would like them to win the group, so I think they're just gonna, yeah, I'll watch. But yeah, nothing to get into it. Yeah, I think we're all going Bickler because that's what he does, and I think that's like mentally take some time off. But that doesn't mean we got a lot going on over here. We'll still have our shows and everything like that. But I think the weekend is when you kind of like take a weekend off, almost off of soccer, and I might try that this weekend.
Kelly's looking forward to it. She's already told me we have plans Saturday and Sunday. I was like, what are those plans? She's like, I don't know, but there's not soccer. No Liverpool. That's the plan.
Yeah, that's why I keep the game times vague with Angie, like, so you don't want to announce anything so that nothing can be scheduled without you knowing, so that you're like, oh, that was the morning, oh, it's in the afternoon and stuff. So you got to play the game right.
That's what happens with age. You got me. It's that age and experience you got, my man. I'm just gonna
writing the book on this shit. Maybe we'll pass it on Patreon when it comes up. Well, everybody have like a great week. We'll be back. I'll be back Wednesday morning. I know you boys are about to record the Premier League show over here with Mecca.
Yep.
But I'll be back Wednesday morning with the crew. The morning coffee show continues with Reckless Coffee. So meet us then. But until then, have an awesome week.